Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Inclusive Angles podcast. Today, we are going to Nigeria, our Jollof cousins. Yes, and I mean Ghana Jollof War. Today, I'm joined by international journalist, correspondent Adesewa Josh. She has a very remarkable journey, starting from Nigeria to the US, to Turkey, to Moscow, back to Nigeria, and then back to the US. Adesewa, ẹ káàfọ̀.
No, at least you tried.
Ẹ káàbọ̀.
Thank you. Now.
How do I respond to that one?
Yeah, you'd be like, yeah, actually, you can just respond anyhow you want. Just
In Ghana, everything we say means yes. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. And full disclosure, Adesewa and I, we work together in TRT. Should we tell the story of how we met in the elevator?
I think that was meant to be, I think. It just so happened the day we arrived at our hotel. It was the same day.
Yeah. And I go for breakfast. I'm going upstairs to the hotel room. I see this black girl in the elevator. I'm like, who is this black girl? What is she doing here?
I think that's why we both had that reaction in the elevator. Like,
yes.
What? There's another one of us here.
And that's where we realized we're working for the same company, and
we got along from then on.
That was a fun story. Okay, back to business. So Adesewa, you didn't actually start in journalism.
And a lot of people didn't know that. I think journalism chose me. So I was a science student. My first degree was in science laboratory technology. It's so deep. As I was wrapping up the course, my option was chemistry, biochemistry. And then when all was said and done in 2010, or was it 2007, I finished, got my degree. Then I went to the University of Life, which was discovering myself. That took me about another 6 years. What do I really want to do? And so I started with television. I was a child star in the Sesame Street equivalent of Galaxy Television used to do, which was ABC Wonderland. So I've been used to TV, very comfortable with a camera. So that was part of my growing up. And so when I finished university, I traced it back. So I took a graduate diploma degree from Lagos State University in International Relations and Strategic Studies. That was when I started taking myself seriously. I took another reporting course from Radio Nigeria. And then from there, I went to London and did another training. And in 2012, the big break happened. That was Channels Television, the biggest. We were breaking stories. Governments were afraid of the reporters there. I got in there, and the rest is history.
We would even go into your work at Channels because it's quite extensive. Her name is like a household name. Household name in Nigeria. Then came in Colombia.
Oh my God, Columbia University. So to be able to understand the significance of Columbia University, you have to understand what my thinking was when I went into Channels TV. I had amassed all of the training I needed, and then I started asking questions, what's next? But I was on the international desk, and I said to myself, what more can I do? So-called talent of mine. And at that point, they started posting me abroad. I think I had just only joined the station years or so. So to be going on international reporting trips of that magnitude, no one was going to give it to me. The elders of the house were going to take that stuff. But the elders of the house were attending to other matters. So it turns out I was going to Tanzania to cover this thing. But the African First Lady's conference. So I was talking to Melinda Gay. At that time, I didn't even know who she was. Imagine, I was talking to all of these big people. It was just me. I was just making sure that I maximize whatever the money they're spending on deployment, whoever was spending it, as well. By the time I came back from that assignment, then I said, I think I know where I'm heading with all of those. So that I then began to build on it. So there were more international assignments. Then I came to the UN for about a month. Nigeria was presiding over this Security Council for the second time. It was a big deal at the time. And I reported. By the time I was done with that reporting, my boss was so proud. For some reason, that set the tone. And somebody called me and said, this girl, you have something in you that you should just, it still needs to be polished, but you can do it. Look around you. and find a school. And that should link you into that international thing I can see. What's it called? I looked away and I said, oh, okay, thank you. And truly, I finished my assignment at the UN. Then I went to Columbia University. As soon as I got in there, it felt like home. And I said, I'm coming back. Following year, I got it.
Was it at Columbia that you
Mhm.
decided I'm going full time into international reporting?
I had been doing international reporting before COVID because all my coming to the UN to report, going to Tanzania to report. Where else did I
But
go?
that
There was
that was for the Nigerian audience,
that was made for the
mainly for the
Nigerian.
Nigerian audience. But
Yeah,
this was to go global.
go over.
Yes.
That's a good framing. I wanted to test the limits of my talent. I was asking myself, if I wasn't working in Nigeria, am I good enough to be elsewhere? I mean, after all, it's a global village.
From what you've narrated so far, it's a trajectory and it's baby step. Each step was always leading you to
Yes,
the goal.
yes.
And
You're
that's
never going to start
sometimes,
doing the
yeah,
thing.
sometimes that's how it is. You don't realize it until you look back and you're
You
like,
look
oh,
back.
okay, this was actually something. I
Yeah,
was creating something without even realizing it.
absolutely.
Let's get to Turkey, where I met you. We were in the same newsroom for like 2 years and then I left. But
Yes, and I
then
continued for 6 years. I've been 7.
I remember was there we used to talk about Africa, we used to talk about the reporting, we used to talk about what we can do. And then you created Africa Matters.
Yeah.
First off, why the name?
Okay, I can't take all the glory for the name. We workshopped that name, and then
Mm,
strongest name won. I have to give
okay.
that to my then EP. We had two, three, four names or so, and they were settled on this one.
What led to it? At what point was
Ah,
like we need this for TRT World? And
Charlie,
for the viewers, TRT World is the English international broadcaster for Turkey.
Charlie, that's a very good question. One of the things that I learned with the work we do is you have to find your area of competitive advantage. When I knew I was going global, I couldn't do what everybody was doing. I worked with VOA for a while. And when I looked in there, I said, somebody needs to be telling our story there.
Mhm.
Because when I started my career, there were not a lot of people who looked like us. And then when they're telling stories about us, you'd be like, this thing happened in my backyard. It wasn't like that, though. Where did they find this fact? Where did that nuance come from? Serious disconnect. It didn't make sense. How many black people do you see reporting the war in Bosnia? Not
Will you,
because
will
we're
you
not
even
smart
get
enough.
visa to go?
Not
I
because
mean,
we're not smart enough to do it. Not because we're not smart enough to do it, but because nobody will even consider you to do it. Now, the few times I have brought up this conversation about who's telling whose story, and saying, I think I heard this really, really nasty, condescending argument about how Africans cannot be trusted to tell African stories because of the ethnic divide that we have and that we won't be objective. I say,
oh wow. I haven't heard that argument.
oh yeah, they can't. That's why they send white people because white people would be more what was that word again? Detached from the stories. I say,
That's interesting. What I've heard is, oh, they lack the training. I've heard things
you
on
see that one, that
the
playbook has gone. Yeah,
accent,
stop talking about that.
like
You know, one
that.
of the things I'm grateful for TRT is that TRT had all kinds of accent.
You conquered. You had the show. You
It was
had.
not Charlie. I started as a producer on newspapers.
Mhm.
And I was like, I felt like I was wasting away after 3 months. One of the things I hate to do is waste my energy. Then I became a marketer. I was marketing my idea from shop to shop, which is from office to office. That is not even something you find in Turkey because that is like you don't just it is not Turkish to do that. But anyway, after 2, 3 years of pushing, I got tired. I was like, I'm going back to America. It looks like this dream will never come true here. And then the pandemic happened, and then we all became desktop reporters.
Mm.
And then somebody figured out that we need to fill the airways with shows. And then someone from high up figured that girl that has been blah, 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 go and call her. The thing that was impossible in 3 years became possible in 2 weeks. I mean, in less than 3 weeks, we shot a pilot. We were on air in a month, and I was on the show for 2 years before I left.
People loved
Yeah,
it.
there was a
Yeah, people
need.
loved it.
There was a need, and it was niche. And there was
Mm.
someone who was there to pull the strings. So, it just so happened there is no hard and fast rule. I cannot write a roadmap for this thing. I can only tell my own story.
As for the pandemic, the wahala it brought, good and
Oh,
bad. needs to
The
be
pandemic
studied.
worked for me. I'm grateful for it.
You talked about back in the day when we saw a lot of foreigners reporting on Africa. There's been a
Ah,
drastic
yes,
change.
and I'd love us to talk about it.
I want us to go into your journey, even booking the presidents you speak to, like from
Mm,
Museveni, going to Mauritania,
yeah.
or going
No,
to Israel, and how was that?
oh no, gosh, that's well. I didn't know you were going to talk about this one. No, this is a very emotional one for me. African international journalists, all the odds in the world are stacked against you. The number one
Exactly.
challenge is, and I think so far we are conquering it because we're not there yet. The first one is perception, perceived as being able to do the job. And that didn't come because somebody became very generous. One of the reasons for the changes you're seeing is money. All of a sudden, it became very expensive to deploy to Africa.
Hmm.
One of the things that I saw was my colleagues going to being deployed to Europe. My
Yeah,
deployment to Africa was much more expensive than their deployment to Europe. So now we
because
have
of cost of
yes,
travel, hotel,
travel, the
visas.
hotel. Yes. So it's money. And for some reason, it feels like stories they move faster now than they used to move before.
Yeah,
Because now we have social media, we have technology. Before the person gets on the plane, the why, where, how, and why is solved. So international media wasn't doing us a favor by now hiring more Africans to do the job. It's just it's more effective, so they shift. Secondly, I used to be very sad about how when I'm hired, because though I can do the job, I realized that talent wasn't enough. It was about positioning. It was also about um it was about timing, it was about positioning, and it was about the need of the company at the time. So I would be like, why are they not sending me? Well, I know this place better. And then I look at my passport and then I look at the person they're sending. That person's passport can go to 150, 60 something countries visa free. And I can't even go to my fellow African country.
you can only travel around ECOWAS.
Who did that to us? So when they look at the prompt, don't forget we've already established the fact that stories move very fast.
Hmm.
You want to be the first to report and report it well. Okay. So because I'm in Africa, you don't make decisions like that. These people are business people.
Yeah. Until you're in that position, I remember when I
You
was
are in
working at
leadership
African
position until
News.
you have had to
Yes,
manage a project.
when I was in African News, and then a few deployments that we've done, and then you look at the budgets and look at all this, it's like then you begin to understand that is not an excuse anyway. That is on our part, our leaders who have failed us. This whole
You
thing about
see,
African Union started way
mhm,
back. All those who started will be
mhm,
turning in their graves by now that in
mhm,
2026 we are still
mhm.
having these issues. But anyway,
We are fighting is the war of perception. And if we agree that the war of perception is what we are fighting, then we better do something about this journalism and being able to move
the
around
movement
our
of goods and services around Africa and all that.
after.
They take storytellers, journalists, and all the others out.
Now, call. Before the goods start to move, the story must move first. You don't understand. How do you know somebody is selling gold in the DRC and selling it for $100 an ounce, which is like cheaper than the world, if somebody is not telling it? Being the raconteur of our own stories as Africans is the one singular survival tactic we must have in this
Yeah,
so-called new global order that is happening. If our leaders in African Union and all the other leaders hiding their money everywhere don't understand this, then we have failed again in this new revolution that is coming. If we don't position and be the raconteur of our own stories, forget it. Tell
it's
this one
it's
that you're
it's
doing
quite
it.
it's quite unfortunate.
It is quite unfortunate. I have a very hurtful experience about Zimbabwe that changed everything for me. Whether I did a good background, that's not a challenge. I take responsibility for somehow not figuring out that I needed a visa as a Nigerian to be in Zimbabwe. I got to the airport, and what happened? My cameraman was allowed in, who was not African, and I was turned back.
Wow.
And I paid a big, big, big price for that deployment. I still reported from away, but it wasn't the same. And that broke my spirit completely. And I said, I must do something about this instead of complaining. What I did about it, not on this version of your podcast, I say, I'm not going to.
We are not going to details here.
Yes.
Well, Adesewa Josh, Oshe.
Okabo, you're welcome.
And viewers, Adesewa has a new show called the Granny's Podcast on Spotify. It's very interesting. I'll put the link in our newsletter. Please subscribe and enjoy. It's been another fun episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay well.